Today I was looking at the top solo queue leaderboard of EU West, and there was one account that instantly stood out to me, which is called left hand #Korea, which has an 80% win rate over 110 games, which are of course insane stats. It reminded me of this 93% win rate Korean player. So I had to deep dive and figure out who is this player actually and what makes him so good. Well, his name is Casey Yahoo. And he gave me a fat beating a week ago. I still remember that. And the amount of games that he's winning is just absolutely insane. Some are duo with his jungler friend Yike, but most of them are actually solo queue as well. So in this video today, we're going to be reviewing a game that he's playing Ryze versus Orianna versus VTO, which is an ex-LEC player as well. We're going to figure out what makes this player so good and what we can learn from him. So in the next time, we might actually have a chance versus him. All right, we're loading upon the Rift, and as we see, we're playing Ryze versus Orianna. This is not a super easy matchup, but it is pretty manageable nowadays because Ryze can basically build full move speed runes, and it's going to make it pretty hard for Orianna to land her spells consistently onto Ryze. And the kind of key thing that we want to do in this matchup is get a good early reset off onto tier. So we do really like heavy trading because it's easy for us to dodge our spells. It allows us to grab up a little bit more push. And therefore we can eventually get into a position where we can control the wave state and control our first reset. This first reset is crucial whenever you're playing a champion with Ghost versus a champion versus TP. And this will allow us to get into a position where we can basically get through the lane and get lane control. That's something that you want to do. The moment you play Ryze, the biggest thing that you want is you want lane control. You can either get lane control through good quality trading or through good quality wave management. And Ryze has especially good quality wave management in the early game, especially compared to Ori. So we're going to use that nice little wave management advantage that we have. So you see that Ryze goes for a two-wave crash. A two-wave crash is a really good wave state that allows us to now get a nice bit of harass onto the Orianna, but especially get control on this next wave right here, where we already can hit the wave and we can already grab a priority. You see that Ryze, he uses all of his spells onto the wave. He's already used his spot as well. We've heavy traded versus Orianna, and we can now just look to hard push the wave into a tempo reset. This is fantastic. If we get cancelled, what we can do is we can also stay for one more wave, which is totally fine as well, because it's really easy for us to nuke that. The only thing that you got to keep in mind is that at that point, you need some extra mana. So since that Orianna is not particularly heavy on the trades, and we're actually quite equal on the trades, we are fine extending this lane a little bit because of the fact that we are not under any crazy amounts of threat or pressure. We can now potentially look to even extend the lane more. We also put 2 points in queue because 2 points in queue is a pretty important breakpoint for Ryze, allowing us to have an easier time one-shotting the waves. Besides that, Orianna doesn't really necessarily know that we have 2 points in queue. So we're kind of playing with a bit of information advantage in this case. So we're unfortunately forced to pop Ghost because of the Nautilus gank. And as you can see, since we're winning the trades, we are not necessarily forced to go for the reset, okay? We do want to keep in mind that Orianna, now getting help from her teammates, is going to be able to reset before us. And then she's going to be able to pop the TP, and she might do some nasty stuff. So that means that we have to instantly match the reset. Otherwise, we're going to lose too many creeps, and we can't really keep up in the lane. So great reset on this wave 5. Why is reset on wave 5 really good? The next wave is going to be a cannon minion wave. So there's no way that Orianna can now hard push this wave in without us being able to catch it. So we lose a few creeps, we lose our Ghost, but we're honestly in a totally fine position because we still get the cannon. And that's basically the advantage of taking Ghost versus TP. It's about 2 minions in this case. Now, one of the key things that we're going to look to try to do is get a bit of lane control again. We still have flash, so we're not super scared of anything, but we control ward towards the bot side, allowing us to be in a position of lane control where we can contest the wave, and we can now start crashing Orianna trades while also being safe and potentially leaning towards the bot side. So you see that we're constantly standing outside of the wave. That's one of the key things you want to do versus Orianna, because otherwise she can AoE you and the minions with her spells, and that's something that we want to avoid. You don't really see it in the way that, if you don't specifically look at it, but the way that Yahoo in this case is moving is to try and dodge out Orianna spells. Okay, he's actively trying to bait that out so that he can get an opportunity where he can get an advantage in the lane. Now, beautiful position here where he gets himself a nice little counter gank from the boys. A little bit of a mistake from Bard in this case, thinking he could gank mid lane. As you can see, we instantly nuke the wave, and we can now once again look for a little bit of a tempo reset. We do not take a greedy reset here, by the way. If you take a greedy reset, you might risk getting yourself cancelled. We do not want that. And as Ryze, we want to opt in for early tier, early boots, and early ruby crystal. Why these items? Well, boots is going to make it very easy for us to dodge Orianna spells, so it gives us lane control. It also allows us to constantly reset, move the lane faster, potentially expand our lead throughout the rest of the map. But the ruby crystal is one of the most cost-efficient items when it comes to control in the lane, because try and deal so much extra damage to someone, you know, you don't get that with an amp tome, the amount of damage. So ruby crystal is an insanely potent item, and we look to hard push this wave because we see an opportunity arise bot side in which that we now lock up the Rengar who has no flash and get a beautiful, beautiful kill. So this was fantastic awareness of map state, okay? He already started pushing the lane, right? The moment he saw something going on bot lane. He could have held this wave neutral if nothing was happening on the map. Then he could deny Orianna more minions. But because he hard pushes, Orianna gets the wave. But he wasn't really planning to play in the isolated lane. He was planning to play on the map. And that's why hard pushing is so correct here. And this leads to a great kill, because this kill also leads towards the dragon. And it's pretty important to get a nice position in the jungle. You do not want to get a fat Rengar into an enemy team. I've seen some fat Rengars. I don't like fat Rengars, okay? That's just, it's not fun to verse. And you see with the amount of wave clear that Ryze has in this case, you just get so much control in the lane. 2 E into Q combinations allow him to get push. And you see that even though the Orianna has lost chapter, and we have the ruby crystal, we can still contest push because of how Ryze as a champion works. We have this empowered damage on our Q plus E, especially when we get some ranks in our ultimate. That's when the damage becomes way higher. You see that in this case, you can also do a combo of basically a double E to spread your E further. This works especially well into champs that are standing really far back, but you actually want to trade a little bit onto them. And we can instantly match the push here. We're now planning to take a new reset. We're actually quite rich. We got 800 gold in the pocket, 900 already. So we're really planning to take a new reset. And in this case, we identify that the next cannon wave is going to be the wave after this wave. So we know that we can push one wave later. And this is actually a way sexier wave to reset on comparatively than the wave that VTO is resetting on. Because the 730 wave, in this case that being the final non-cannon, is now also going to be the final wave before the Grubby spawn timer. Which means that if we open up from mid right now with our super strong items, in this case tier 2 boots, which is really good to dodge out on more Orianna spells, summoner spell cooldown, which is really good for skirmishing, and extra ruby crystal, which is really good for early lane control and skirmishing, what you'll find is that these plays around the map are just not going to be losable right now because of how unbelievably strong that we are when it comes to our build. And even though that in isolation this matchup may not be particularly good for us as Ryze, because of the tools that we have with the new season where we can reset all time, we have the extra move speed, we have celerity plus move speed chart, it's actually kind of hard for Orianna to break through this matchup. So this matchup that used to be horrible for Ryze is actually really good to play in the early lane, but it starts to get a little bit harder the moment Orianna reaches level 8, 9, when she has this really short Q cooldown, and she can basically constantly look to poke you. You see here, he kind of misread the net gank threat, but it was okay because we have both Ghost plus Flash, and we actually get Orianna's Flash out for it as well, which was, in my opinion, kind of worth. It was totally fine to trade sums right there, and even though we lose the Grubbies, it's okay. Viego got a lot from it on bot. And we're now in a position where we really want to link up with our Viego. Ryze is one of these champs that is a great secondary carry. He loves multi-threat. He loves it when his teammates deal damage. It's really hard for Ryze to solo carry games because of the fact that he's medium range. And that basically gives him someone to play for. He's got a great shove and move. So we got to constantly keep our eyes on what our Bard and what our Viego are doing so we can link up with them and actually get some good quality plays going. So we do a fantastic job contesting the wave state here, grabbing a nice bit of push, beautiful, and we instantly move over towards the Viego to give him a little bit of cover and potentially force Orianna to make a mistake. Maybe she oversteps, gets Bard ulted. You see that Bard's literally perma-hovering mid, insanely annoying to verse. But this was a beautiful gank by Net. Honestly, this was an amazing gank. And I think the key thing to understand about this death and why it's such a bad death is because his team is currently on downtime, right? One thing that he didn't fully internalize is what this Bard reset meant, plus what this Viego positioning meant here, which led to him being super vulnerable without his team being able to get something in return. So he misread the Rengar R threat, which is not easy to do, right? Rengar ult threat is fucking insane, by the way. That champion is crazy, especially in solo queue when there's not insanely good jungle tracking, leading to, in this case, a kill for the Rengar and Orianna. Great play by NettyNet. Really good punishment of the no sums from Ryze. Yeah, almost no counterplay to a Rengar gank like that. But as you can see, in this case, the jungle and support, we got Nemesis on support here. Counterplay it incredibly well, allowing them to get a beautiful position in which that they kill the Orianna. And this is huge, because Orianna being dead at this timer means that we can get a little bit of extra control in the lane, denying Orianna some minions. And Rengar does not have ult yet, which means that we are in a position where we can basically punish quite easily. And also get a plate. And plates nowadays are really good because they help to get you the quest stacking a lot faster. So these plates are amazing to take, and they really, really benefit us as Ryze. So after pushing, we do not look to try to nuke Orianna in the tower. We're just instantly trying to group up with our team, link up with the Viego, and we just literally start Drake on spawn. This is a bit of a thing that you see a lot in pro play as well, where just everyone just rushes Drakes. It's a really good way to force the game to go front-to-back teamfight oriented, right? Which is really good versus a champion like Rengar, because of the fact that Rengar really likes to pick people off in isolation. And if we can stack up Drakes like this, he's going to eventually be forced to teamfight. And it's just harder to navigate yourself around teamfights as Rengar. Now, we got some problems on the bot lane, you know. Looks like Crownie is dying a little bit in the 2v2. Probably because he's being a little bit left alone with by the Bard. Bard's like constantly mid, which has its upsides and its downsides, of course. So what we're constantly doing is we're just nuking the wave, right? And we're now putting pressure onto the side by moving down. And we don't always have to full commit on a roam, right? You can also decide to not move, but just going into the fork, especially since we have the control ward onto the bot side, puts a lot of pressure onto the enemy champions because they don't really know where we at and what we're doing. And you see right now, because of this initial sequence where you gave Orianna that kill, we're starting to get towards the later parts of the lane. Orianna now is in a position where she can contest us a lot better. She can actually hit us with her damage. Now, she's not necessarily going to be able to like fully break through lane, but she's a little bit stronger. We find a beautiful, beautiful linking up play with our jungle. Perfect awareness of what our Viego is doing. And since Rengar had no flash, this allowed us to now fully commit and get a beautiful, beautiful play with the Viego. Now, we wanted to reset initially, but we see that the Jace contests. So what we do is we move over and we instantly help the Viego, because our Viego currently is our win condition. We did pop the Ghost. The Ghost is really good in these type of skirmishes. But they identify right now, hey, the play is kind of over. We got an insane amount of money in the pocket. We got 1,500 gold. Just push the wave and let's get a nice little reset off so we can actually get back on the map and start playing with our jungler. If you would be over-forcing the fight right now, what would happen is that you would risk dropping the shutdowns, and you don't really want to give the enemies an opportunity back into the game. So that's why we tempo reset right now, to establish our lead and not give them an opportunity to get a favorable fight. Now, this is very, very interesting. So what he does here is he deploys into top. Why does he deploy into top? Well, the lane assignments are being swapped up right now. We're getting 14 minutes into the game, which is usually time when the lane assignments are swapped up. The quests have been completed, and we want to match up lane assignments, okay? This Yorick actually got himself a position where he got the steel caps, okay? And that means that with steel caps Yorick, we don't want to put him versus the Orianna. Besides that, the next play is going to be, in this case, you see it on the right there, it's going to be the Rift in 44 seconds and Drake only in 2:16. So that means that Rift will probably be contested or played first. And we're now just side laning. We got to be very careful for the Rengar. We don't want to randomly die to him. But since our team is actively pressuring up bot and playing heavily upon bot, we are also able to play upon top side here because of the fact that if Rengar, for whatever reason, decided to be top side, we could still just nuke the wave and our team would get a whole lot for it on the other side of the map. Now, as you can see, we got to be very careful for Orianna. This Orianna has great ability usage. Vito still got it with the spells. He's doing an amazing job. And it looks like Yahoo is getting a bit of an interesting angle here to the side. I've not really seen this before. It's kind of something that Ryze does like to do. It's just so hard to get into the range of Orianna right now. Looks like he kind of just wanted to defend his pink ward, which is a really good ward to defend, by the way. It's a very strong ward. We see there's some action happening in jungle. Our jungler got caught off guard, and that sucks because of the fact that we probably lose Herald because of that, and just a massive shutdown going to Rengar, especially net Rengar. It's not a Rengar you want to feed, you know. So we're just catching every single side lane wave, and we're looking for opportunistic plays. It looks like Varus died again, which sucks because now we're forced to take over mid and drop top. Why is this the case? Well, we have a pressure leak, okay? We don't want to lose mid turret, we rather lose top turret. Top turret is better to lose than mid turret. Plus, if we lose mid push and no one contests, they can shift into top side and then dive us on top T1. That's why moving to mid is correct here, because otherwise we would be bleeding out too much. And we would kind of be stuck there on top as well, because then we're pressuring on bot and we're not really pressuring on mid. And that means that we just get collapsed upon the top side. Not ideal. So, Dragon's coming up in a little bit. Okay, we definitely want to look to try and see if we can take that Drake, because of the fact that the Dragon is a third Drake, and that's a potential win condition. We can get a soul win con. So you see that we're currently dropping top here, and now playing up into bot side, which allows us to catch the Rengar off guard and eventually find a beautiful, beautiful play just barely before he has flash. And killing this Rengar basically is going to guarantee us to get that next neutral objective. So really nice shift. What Yahoo did, we got a bit of a ladder shift. He went from top to mid to catch over mid. Then he went into bot and he sent his Yorick to top to be on the correct lane assignments, right? For this Dragon. We want to be correct, having the correct lane assignments for Drake, because this Drake's what it's all about. And the enemies are now TPing in, which is a very interesting TP, because the Yorick actually matches, which leads to a position where the enemies are taking a 4v5 fight. Now, they're either inting, right? Which is a great possibility. Or what actually happens is that they thought, okay, maybe we need to force the Yorick TP so he doesn't break our top side as well. Could also be the mindset, you know, you never know in solo queue. But I can potentially see why they would want to do that. But then, of course, it's important that they don't die, because if they die, then yeah, they're not really going to be able to progress the game. So this is a very, very, very interesting lane assignment. So what he does here is he actually goes into bot side. And the reason he goes into bot side is because the next neutral objective is currently spawning on top. And Yorick, in this case, has no TP. So I think his thought process is, okay, I can realm warp up here. And that's why I don't mind going bot. Plus, my tempo was a little bit faster than the Yorick. Otherwise, Yorick would still be entering bot lane right now. And it would take him a shit long time to get over to top side. Now, the Rift is going to be contested. And what we find is that Yahoo is taking this extra wave on bot. Very, very risky wave, because we don't have... I'm not sure if he had info on the Rengar, but, you know, we kind of have to bank upon Rengar being topside. And it looks like to me that he didn't have info. Eventually, he made the right call to get that extra wave out, which was a fantastic call. And you see that Varus is now in a position where he initially wanted to reset, but we're kind of staying, because he's happy to force the play with the Viego, knowing that Orianna's bot without TP. So they're trying to leverage this TP advantage from the Orianna, and he kind of takes the ult. It was a little bit of an interesting ult, and we're just kind of trampling the enemies at the moment. So we do a bit of a reset. We're going to be matching the Orianna again in the side lane back to bot. And the goal is, once again, just enable this Viego, right? That's all we have to do. Enable the Viego. He will carry. We will root someone up, and he's going to just win the fights. Now, it looks like Rengar might be opening up topside, potentially contesting that play. Looks like we got the Herald. So all we need to do right now is identify the next neutral objective and play for it. Which is, of course, going to be the Dragon. The Dragon is where we want to have that fight around. And the Dragon spawns on 220. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play for the Baron in the next 30 seconds. We're going to get topside vision control because Baron's up next. And then we're going to take the Drake. Because it's a little bit easier to take than the Nesh. Now, we do a great shift into mid. It looks like Varus died again. Varus is having a little bit of a tough game here. It's not easy versus the likes of Nautilus Rengar, of course. So he's struggling a little bit. But we get a pretty beautiful position in which that we, once again, defend mid. And because Varus is going to respawn real soon, we can now move into bot to catch the bot lane wave. It looks like we actually skip bot and do one more mid lane wave because Skorky pushes it out fast. So we got to take over from Varus, and now we just go bot here. And what we identify is that Yorick does not have TP just yet, and the lane assignments are now being swapped up, which is totally fine because the top lane wave is irrelevant right now. If you look at the top lane wave, no one is answering the top lane wave. It's really whatever. The time before it gets towards the turret actually takes a really long time. So we are very happy hard forcing right now in the 5v4 position, because even if the Jace TP's in, right, it's going to take a long while before he actually gets there, and this great pick, right, allows him to now play into Baron. So why does he not instantly get bullied up into top side, right? Because Yorick takes over his lane. I want you to look at this wasted location, okay? The key thing that matters is the only time that he needs to be top is when it hits turret. So you see that it actually takes a long time. It takes a full minute, probably 2 more waves, right? Before it actually gets there. Maybe a little bit shorter, 50 seconds or something like that. But it takes a long time, and he uses that time. He recognizes that time to do a hard force play on mid here, leading him to be in a position where he can now snowball it into Baron. So he's understanding the tempo of the game really well. He has a really good understanding of when plays will happen, and he's not moving when he's not necessary, but he is moving when he's either brute forcing them themselves or when he is necessary. So Jace goes for a TP. He instantly moves back to Baron because they gotta secure the Baron. You know, the Rengar is always tricky to play into. So they secure the Baron, and what he identifies after that is, of course, that Dragon is, of course, coming up next. So first we push out the wave, then we... I think it would be good to get a reset off to match tempo with the boys. In this case, he does not decide to reset. He doesn't care about the amount of money that he has. It gets a little bit risky here, but overall he gets the wave out just fine. And this allows us to get the soul. And the moment we have the soul, the game is just so easy to end off, because all we need is one more fight. It looks like they just get one more fight. So let's take a look at the one more fight that they get, which allows them to win the game. They're playing a very interesting siege position right now, which is quite dangerous versus Rengar. We got the Rift onto bot side. We don't really want to be isolated too much versus the Rengar, because he can just annihilate us, even though that we are quite tanky as Ryze. So we group up as a team here, and we're just trying to slowly siege away at these turrets. In this case, Yahoo tries to go bot. We do have a little bit of info in the jungle. It looks like probably Rengar ulted mid, so we now ult to instantly respond. Varus once again dies. Rip Varus, not much that he can do here. And we flash over the wall, which is a very ballsy play. I like what he's trying. Great play. We ace the enemy team, and we can just end the game from this point. So, honestly, he didn't do any magical things this game. He did not have any magic. What he did have is he did have really good awareness of fighting timers. He was really good at keeping his resources up and high, maximizing his farm while being present for the fights that were happening, and he never was in a position where he was wasting his time. He was hyper efficient and only misread threat assessment once or twice, which only led to him having 1 death, which was a pretty bad death. But besides that, he actually played a very good game. Really understandable why this guy is killing it on the EOS solo queue ladder, and I'm stoked to see more of this player because he is insane.